There's been a lot of reports about the Sixers being linked to all of the big name free agents, and I mean every single free agent out there. The Sixers have interest in them. It's honestly wild. And trade block players in search of the third member of a big three. But a lot of fans would rather the Sixers sign a lot of high quality role players instead of cashing in assets for an aging big name veteran. So I guess Sixer fans saw what the Knicks did to us and saw how they had a decent run in the playoffs. They want that model now. But where do you guys stand on this? Would you rather high quality role players or a big three?
I'm only of the quote unquote big three if this guy is coming in and he can do what Maxey does on a consistent basis. And if he can't do that, I'll rather go the other route with multiple contributing players. But I don't want someone that's, excuse me. We say he's the big three because of what he has done. We need someone that we know are going to do it, and that's where you get into when you get into the names like Paul George. Like Paul has done it, but is that who Paul is right now?
And for the next 3 years,
that's what I'm saying. Is it fair to expect that for the next 3 years
or 4?
So, because we've been there with James. I mean, we were there with James and everybody, James from averaging 27, 28 to averaging 19, 20, and 11, 19, and that wasn't good enough. So I think it has to be a guy that that can get you what Max can do, what Maxey can do as far as putting up numbers somewhere near there, and someone that if Joel was out, we can possibly still win a series because the Knicks won a series against us without a starter.
Yep. Big starter too.
So was he their first leading scorer or second leading scorer when he got injured? First or second?
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. I'm aligned with Eric and a portion of what Morey goes by, which is just get the best talent possible and figure it out. But I kind of want a combination of these things, and it is attainable. This is why I prefer George to Butler, because we wouldn't have to give up assets or draft picks, and we still have about $15 million to spend. So if you got George at a high price, you'd still be able to kind of handpick the talent around the league at the contract you like, and just give draft picks away. I mean, not just give away, just trade them for the. I look at Dallas. Dallas is a good hybrid of this, right? Dallas has 2 superstars who are really high paid, so they're top heavy. They got 2 of them, and then they took their assets and they divvied them out for guys on good contracts that were about to expire for whatever reason, or guys for long-term contracts that teams wanted to get rid of that fit exactly what they needed. They went out and they shelled out draft picks for Gafford, and they shelled out draft picks for P.J. Washington. 2 guys that they hit home runs for him. Because if you look at Dallas, they still have an underperforming Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. is not even performing to what he was for them, what his contract was, but they've made up for it because they made so many good moves that hit home runs on. The Jones signing was great. P.J. Washington trade was great. Lively hit. So if you can do a tweener between those, and let's say you do a sign George, you got about $15 million to play with. You make a good shell out a couple of firsts or a first for a guy in a good contract around the $7 to $9 million range. You still have another $7 to $9 million ready to spend on another guy. You get 2 guys that just fit your scheme perfectly on good contracts. You don't have to worry about going over the cap later on. It's something that they already said they're not worried about. They'll spend the money and they'll spend the draft to keep the team together. So this year's all about strategically getting as much talent as possible. And then after this is just keeping it together and shelling out the tax dollars to have it. That's why when we had our free agents show, I preferred the Laurie or the Bridges deals because it allowed us so much more money to spend afterwards and still have those role players. You can still do that with PG and Butler. It's a lot harder with Butler. It's hard with George, but less than with Butler because you can still trade assets to get guys on good deals. But I think we can get it done by signing PG. I'll be at the higher price tag. And I don't think Ingram is the player George is, but he makes a lot less than George, which gives us even more money to play with. That gives us about like 25 million to play with after that.
So you're saying you don't think when you say you don't think Ingram is the player George is, like, what do you mean by that?
Right now, I don't think he's the best.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what do you mean by that? You talking about his fit, or you just talking about their talent?
Fit for us.
Okay.
I'd rather have George for what we are right now. George is, when other players on the team have it, he can be passive. When he needs to step up and score the 35-40, he can do it. He's shot well above 40 on a catch and shoot on a high clip, too, for the last, I don't know how many years, which he's going to get a lot of catch and shoots with guys like Maxey and Embiid around him. Ingram still doesn't take a lot of threes.
He got guys around him now.
Yeah.
Ingram. I was just asking.
I still like Ingram.
What the difference.
I think Ingram's a little more. I think Ingram's closer to a Tobias in the fact that he's a little more ISO heavy than what George can be to score. George doesn't have to take the ball one-on-one to score. He can catch and shoot 4 threes a game and score just 12 just off of that. And then he can go off his ISO and play off of other people. I just think Ingram's a little more ball dominant than what George has to be on a better team. I'm not against Ingram at all. And he's younger, so he can grow into that role. So long-term commitment, you can make a good argument that Ingram's a better long-term commitment than George is at this point. And he's closer to Maxey's age.
What is long-term, though? To me, anything over 2 years is long-term.
Yes. So Ingram's going to get an extension after next season. So what, a 3-year plus that? So they'll both be ending in like 4 years. Ingram will be – he's still young. He'll be like in his early 30s in 4 years.
My thing with Paul is I don't think he can commit more than 2 years. And I don't think Paul is leaving the Clippers for a 2-year deal.
Nah. Yeah, I think you're going to have to give him the 4 for $212 to get him here.
And I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's the route the Sixers should take.
I think from what I read, the beat reporters had a mailbag recently for the Clippers, and they were saying how, from the way Frank made it sound, they're going to allow him to test free agency, and that's probably because they don't expect someone to divvy out the 4 years or 212. So if no one does that, he'll probably come right back to LA to get that contract.
And if they do, you let him walk. If they do, you let him walk.
You mean you're the Clippers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know though, man.
I know for a fact that Clippers owner isn't necessarily stressing about it, about having to pay it. So I don't think from his perspective. I mean, he just gave T. Lue is that the largest deal or close to the largest deal? So they're going into the new arena, so he ain't tripping on it. Unlike a lot of other owners, like he's different. So his reach is very different. So yeah. I think at the end of the day, Paul's from California. I believe he's going to get the most money there. I don't see him leaving. I just don't see him leaving. I mean, maybe he don't get the money he wants, but I just think that he's going to get the best deal there. I just don't see a California guy leaving to go to Philly.
I know, man. I struggle with it too, but
I don't think Paul does it unless the deals are drastically different.
Like 1 year and 50
And the
extra
only way
million.
I think, the only way I think it can get drastically different is years more than salary.
Yeah.
Like we offer him a 4-year deal and the Clippers offer him a 2-year deal. Something like that.
Yeah, I think right now the extension is the Kawhi extension. It's 3 for 152. I think they offered him this pretty much the same thing, I think, for both of them.
And he's not getting more than that. He's not getting more than Kawhi. He may get the same amount as Kawhi, but he's not going to get more than Kawhi.
Yeah, I think he wants the extra year. Is what he wants.
They're not. You can't give him. You can't. You got to keep them on the same. Get them off the cap at the same time. You can't give one guy 4, another guy 3. Can't do it.
That's why they're trying to leverage us and say, well, Philly's going to give us 4 for 212.
Well, then Philly going to have to give it to you then.
Exactly.
And they're saying Philly's going to now. Philly will be cap strapped if they give you that deal. So we give Paul George 4 years. We're basically saying Paul and Maxey and Joel got to win us a championship.
Yep.
And whoever else we put around them, because you're not getting anybody else for 4 years.
Yep.
And the draft pick becomes a big deal for us.
So if you think that can win you a championship, maybe so. I mean, maybe so.
Yeah.
I mean, it could. If you could look at the Mavericks and you could arguably be like, hey, we can do what they did.
Yeah.
It's teams that you can look at and be like, Pacers made it to the conference finals.
Yeah.
Even though they play some injured teams, but I'm just saying, they still made it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the same injured team that beat us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if we can keep our draft picks and try to send them out for good contract role players, then I'd be okay with it. I mean, hopefully they have a plan. We're coming down to the wire here of 3 weeks from now. So
they've had a year to fine tune this plan. So hopefully they do have a legit plan.
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram's 26, by the way, and Eric, you were right. Julius Randle was the second leading scorer when he was injured. By the time he was injured, he was the second leading scorer.
Second, okay.
He was I think he had averaged 24 points a game behind Brunson's 28 points a game. And RJ Barrett was the third leading scorer at 18 points a game when he was there.
So that's a big impact.
24-point game, 24 points. So that's like us losing Maxey.
Yeah.
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 We have a full throttle Joel, but lose Maxey. That's hard, man.
Yeah.
We're not winning 2 games without Maxey.
No.
So another one of the names, I know Paul George is the sexy name everyone likes to talk about as far as us being interested in, but another name that we are interested in, and one of the million guys we are interested in, was Donovan Mitchell. And I know that when you guys talked about the needs of our squad, you guys didn't really mention like another guard. Would you be upset if that ends up being the target for us? I mean, if he even ends up leaving Cleveland in the first place, which I have serious doubt that happens. But if we offered a 4-year deal to Donovan Mitchell, would that be an exciting one for you, or no?
I like Donovan Mitchell.
You'd like him next to Maxey on the squad?
I think that. Yeah, I like him next to Maxey, but I would have to be cautious about how they play, because I think Mitchell going to the Cavs has regulated Darius Garland. He's kind of like, I don't know if it's Garland that's kind of deferring too much. If it was JB and the staff kind of like telling him to throttle it down, but it was a serious decline from not necessarily from a talent standpoint, but serious decline from a aggressive standpoint when Mitchell showed up. So that would have to be addressed, that Maxey has to play a certain way to maintain, to maintain that level of consistency and play that he has. He has to be aggressive and playing hard and active and getting shots up and speed and transition. Like, he has to play a certain way. And I think if you're getting a guy in and he's playing mainly ISO ball, then you have to You have to be aware of that.
And I think if Dallas can be a blueprint, if that were to be a thing with the way Kyrie and Luka played off each other, although we don't really have neither of those guys are as much facilitators as Luka is.
Yeah,
but,
Luka's a unicorn, man. You can't just duplicate that.
Yeah.
Do you think Garland or Mitchell will be a better fit for us?
Mitchell. Garland he's not a fit.
Yeah. And the three, Embiid, Maxey, and Donovan Mitchell are friends with each other. So there you go. There's a fit right there.
There's legs.
Yeah. Okay, so final
these
topic.
Guys friends, man. How many friends they got? How you friends with all these guys on other teams, man?
A lot of group texts, Eric.
Yeah, a lot of group texts. Well, I think a lot of them became very close to the Michael Rubin party, and I think that whole like Michael Rubin like fanatics thing. I think a lot of guys have gotten closer from that and stuff.
Yeah,
man, I understand that like you cool with somebody, but that don't make them your buddy because you cool with somebody. That's what I don't understand how they do all that. You can't be friends with everybody. That's why they don't be trying to knock people's head off.
I
when
know.
They play against them. Everybody can't be your buddy.
Yeah.